Welcome, welcome to D. Holloway's Midlife Takeover, where it's never too late to get your money straight. All right, so let's get into this video. Now, we can all agree on one thing, and that is life is expensive. And the funny thing is that we make it expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive, but we make it expensive by buying the fancy car or the big house, or people have to have the designer clothes, or we have to go on the nicest vacations and we got to eat at the hottest spots. All of these things add up. And then the next thing you know, people are out here hustling just to support these type of things. But there is one thing that is generally sitting in front of us every single day. We willingly sign up for it, and it is super expensive. And that is our own damn kids. These people are super expensive. And in this video, I want to talk about why I believe that kids are, well, one of the biggest wealth killers of them all for the average middle class family. First of all, I want to preface this. I am not saying that having kids is a horrible idea. I understand that kids can bring a ton of enrichment to your life. They can bring a ton of joy to your life, especially kind of watching these young little people grow up, learn things, and they go out into the world and start pursuing their own dreams and goals and so forth. That's like a beautiful thing to see. But make no mistake about it. These people are super expensive to raise. Not to mention, a lot of you are going to be horrible parents anyway. So you're not getting much out of it anyway, except the expense of raising them. So let's talk about what I mean by kids being a wealth killer, for lack of a better term. And I'm going to use some research data as well as some data from my own personal life. So my wife and I have three kids, and two of them are not my biological kids. My wife was married before and had two kids, and then we have one kid together. So the oldest two, they were around, I don't know, 7 or 8, could have been 6 or 7 when I came around. And then later on in life, we had the youngest one, my youngest son. So that's the only child that I have as well. Thank God, because that dude is a handful and he's super expensive. From an emotional and a financial support perspective, I treat them all the same. And thank goodness I married a marriage and family therapist, because I will admit, on the financial support side, I'm good. But on the emotional support side, I am horrible. And I know that I'm horrible. So thank goodness that I have her to pick up the slack in that area. But again, I treat them all the same. And when we die, they split it all 3 ways. There's no difference. So there was a study published back in 2017 by the US Department of Agriculture that said that for a middle class family, married, two children, that it cost roughly $233,000 to raise those children from birth to age 17. Now, fast forward and you take into account inflation, that study is saying now that it would cost roughly $306,000 to raise those same children, assuming that they were born in the year 2023 or after. So we're talking about a significant cost growth in the amount that it takes to raise children. So those numbers that I mentioned, they don't even include any costs like costs for college or anything like that. But you have housing, childcare, and food that are going to be the major expenses that you're going to have over the course of raising a child. And that doesn't even include things like healthcare, transportation, to get them to and from wherever they need to go. And they always need to go somewhere. And you also are going to have a bunch of like miscellaneous expenses like family vacations. You're going to have hobbies, sports, and even haircuts. Man, you wouldn't believe how much I've spent over the time for getting hair done and haircuts over the course of their lifetime. So I decided to look at my own life and give it a test versus what the USDA estimate said about how much it costs to raise a child from birth to age 17. Now, my son has attended a combination of, daycare, after school care, summer camps, and things of that nature so that my wife and I could work. nobody could be able to sit at home and take care of him. And also, he attended private school through the 6th grade. And we're not even talking about like elite private school here. We're talking about mid private school here. So let's say on average, we spent, and I'm just taking a low number here. Let's just say on average, we spent $1,000 each month for 12 years, right? That is $144,000 just through 6th grade, age 12, that we have spent on this one child. It doesn't include any health care, food, clothing, transportation, miscellaneous activities. Doesn't include any of that stuff. So we're talking about one child, $144,000 through 12 years old. So I can definitely see how for a middle class family with 2 children that you could spend $233,000 or $306,000 combined over the period of birth to 17 years old. Okay, so let's look at my other kids. And luckily, I missed the first 7 or 8 years because they were not my kids then. So my wife had to take care of that, but only if it were that simple. So my wife and I paid for about 50% of our daughter's college education. And so that was about $12,000 to $14,000 a year, right? That we contributed to her college education. Now, if luckily she graduated in 4 years, so that $12,000 to $14,000 a year for 4 years, that comes to like $56,000, right? So that's $56,000 we had to contribute, but that doesn't include any cost of moving her in, moving her out, money that we sent her for, just basic, necessities and food and all this other stuff, right? Not even including that. After that was done and she graduated, the remaining money that I had saved for her college education, I used that money to buy her car. So now we're talking about 70 plus $1,000 that we've spent in this 4 year period for this one child. Now, to my oldest son, he decided that college was not going to be his thing, although he did blow that first $15,000 the first year for him to attend college. So luckily, he figured out that this was not for me and he did not waste any more money. So I appreciate him for that. Now, that doesn't mean that we didn't spend money on him, because at the age of 16, I gave him his first car, right? He's now on car number 4. I'm not going to even talk about what happened to these cars, but only one of these cars did he save up and put his own money on. So regardless, kids are still going to cost you money no matter what. And we're not even talking about, again, the expenses from, birth to age 7 or 8. And we're not talking about any of the other expenses after that, as far as food, transportation, housing, healthcare, blah, 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 right? It is super expensive to raise children. Let's take the USDA estimate at its word that for a middle-class family, married couple, 2 kids, that it takes $306,000 to raise those kids from birth to age 17. Now, let's say I didn't have these kids, and each year for over a 17-year period, I put in $18,000 a year into the stock market. Let's just say the S&P 500. And over the course of those 17 years, I'm constantly adding $18,000 a year. That base of $306,000 would have grown to over $700,000. So that is a tremendous amount of money over a short period of time that you could have accumulated in wealth. And I just do not understand how the average middle class family is building that type of wealth when you have 2 kids, 3 kids. And I do not see how the average middle class family can build wealth with that number of kids. Now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, you have people who are in the 75th percentile of household income in the US, which is usually people with a household income over $200,000, right? And research shows that these individuals actually, their net worth increased by 50% after they had children. And for those with household incomes in the 90th percentile of household incomes, they actually saw their net worth increase twice as much after they had children. Now, I chalk that up to the fact that these individuals already have like the money making profile. So the fact that they have children, that doesn't slow them down. They're generally people who are going to continue to grow and make more money, whether it's because of, the education that they have or the jobs that they work in that are high paying, jobs and so forth. So, but I don't want to dig down into those details, but it's just showing you that for people who are richer to begin with, it doesn't necessarily impact their wealth building after they have children. But it does put a significant strain on the average middle class family, which is going to have a household income much lower than $200,000 a year. Now to the big question: am I saying that it is a bad thing to have children, or am I saying that I don't like children and I wish I didn't have children? No, that is not what I'm saying. Children can bring a lot of joy and enrichment. Like I said, it is wonderful to watch them grow and start to figure things out. And they go out and they're pursuing life and they're becoming self-sufficient. And you know that your kids are like positive attributes to society and they're going to make the world a better place. That is a good thing to see, and that they're not going to be takers in life. But again, they are expensive. And for the average middle class family, they make it almost impossible for you to build wealth at the same time. It is extremely difficult. And all I'm saying is that people need to take into account and think seriously about having kids, the number of kids that you have, marrying someone and taking on other kids, because it is going to be very expensive to raise them. I'm telling you. That's all I got to say before I get myself into some serious trouble here at home. And if you have a different perspective on whether or not kids actually stunt the wealth growing capabilities of the average middle class family, I would love to hear your perspective. In the meantime, take care and be safe out here in these social media streets.